ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930 present The Drive. Brought to you by Huntington Federal Savings Bank. Local then, local now. Member FDIC.
It is Thursday, January 14th. Your Drive begins now on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. You can be a part of this program by calling the Miller Lite phone lines, 877-420-TALK, 877-420-8255. Miller Lite Hold True Great Taste, only 96 calories. It is the original light beer. Coming up today on the program, we're going to hear from the voice of the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers, Randy Lee. We'll catch up with him here in the next few minutes. He can tell us about what we can expect between Marshall and Western Kentucky. Also, later on, we're going to hear from the head coach of the Marshall volleyball team, Ari Aganus. The order of finish is out, and there's some pre-conference honors already coming the Herd's way. So we're going to talk to Coach about 5:35. So I've got her in a tight window. And so we're going to hear from Randy in just a few minutes to talk about the game. And after that, we'll have plenty to get into, of course. Probably the big news today. And I really don't want to get into the James Harden thing. That's just not me. If you wanted my opinion on it, great deal for Brooklyn. Everybody else got hosed. That's my pro take on it. Urban Meyer and the Jacksonville Jaguars, they're working on their deal. Urban Meyer making that jump to pro football, that is a mistake. There is my hot take. And it's not to say that Urban Meyer can't coach. Oh, Urban can coach. Urban can coach. Nick Saban can coach. These big-time coaches, they didn't get there because they just stumbled upon it. You don't win 3 national championships with Urban Meyer just because, he didn't get lucky. Maybe you get lucky with 1. Okay, you got lucky. You got really lucky. But 2, okay, you might have something, kid. 3, you won 3 with the guy. 2 at Florida, 1 at Ohio State. And you might think that Ohio State probably should have won more, but that's another argument. But you make that leap to the pros, it's a completely different animal. It is a completely different beast because it's not that the coaching is better. You're not a better coach. If you're an NFL coach and successful, doesn't mean you can go down to the college ranks and be a successful college coach. I mean, just same skill set, different skill set, if you know what I'm saying. Recruiting is a lot easier or harder, depending on who you are. You got drafting. Maybe you have an eye for talent. I don't know. And then you can convince a group of kids to follow you what you're building. You're always building. You're always building something, and you're trying to build a culture, and you can get them to buy in. And it's not easy being a pro coach because you got multimillionaires and some highly paid guys too on that roster. More so in the NBA. The NBA is probably a lot harder. You have to be a spectacular people person and know the game to coach in the NBA. I'm not saying you don't have to be a spectacular people person and know the game to coach in college, but it's just completely different. I mean, these multimillionaires, they might not necessarily want to hear what you have to say as the coach. College, it's the coach's way or it's over for the most part, depending on the coach. So, Urban Meyer, all right, we'll see. Let's see what that looks like. What's the worst thing that can happen? A couple years, it doesn't work out. He goes back to working on being a college football analyst. Not being in the pros hasn't hurt Tim Tebow. He's doing well. He's a big name in college football, and there's nothing wrong with that because it doesn't mean that just because you didn't do well in the pros doesn't mean you're a bad athlete. It's just completely different. 100%. Basketball, we have that. We actually have that coming up today. We have Marshall women's basketball taking on Western Kentucky. That's going to be tonight, Cam Henderson Center. So after the show is over, you can flip over to the student station if you like, listen to a little bit of that game. And I checked on the play-by-play announcer. It's not my guy, the sports information director himself, Jason Courier. He's not doing the game tonight. So Yeah, I didn't get the memo on who is, so I'm not telling you to tune in for Jason until Sunday. He's got the Sunday game. I think that's starting to become a running joke here. Just me promoting only Jason and nobody else when he does the games. Yeah, not ESPN Plus feed, no. Not the Conference USA TV feed, no. Just Jason, the SID of Marshall University, also the basketball SID. That's the running joke there. We're going to take our break. When we come back, I've got the voice of the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers joining me, Randy Lee. Later on, Ari Aganus, head coach of the Marshall volleyball team. That's your show today. I'm looking forward to it here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
The Drive with Paul Swann. Marshall Athletic Director Mike Hamrick. He knows.
Paul's the best.
On ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
We are presented by Huntington Federal Savings Bank. Welcome back to today's edition of The Drive. Our phone lines brought to you by Miller Lite, and joining us now on the Miller Lite phone lines, we have got a longtime friend of the program, the well-regarded, highly respected voice of the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. One Randy Lee joins us now on the program. How are you doing, sir?
Well, appreciate that, but I agree with Mr. Hamrick. Paul is the best.
There you go. That's another liner right there. That'll be showing up next week in the liner rotation. Thanks, Randy. I appreciate that.
I don't know how many times I've agreed with Mike Hamrick or not, but I do on that note for sure.
That's golden. I needed that. Thank you. That is golden.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
I'm a little worried about this game for the Herd coming up. Western Kentucky's is this a trap game? I don't know. Western Kentucky's really good. Marshall's had the
trap game for who?
It's a trap for somebody because the Herds had a few extra days here to not see the basketball court due to the contact tracing and all of that. And Western Kentucky's looking like it's going to be a strong contender. I know right now Conference USA is probably we still don't know, but I'm looking at Western Kentucky. I'm looking at Bassey. I'm thinking, who can stop that kid?
Well, WKU was the overwhelming favorite to win the conference this year, and based upon what they did prior to conference starting, I think you probably would have, everyone would have probably agreed that they would be the team to beat. They still may be, but as of right now, I don't think they're playing at that level. They had a great non-conference. They only lost twice. No one even came close to playing the difficult teams they played. They beat Memphis, Northern Iowa, went to Alabama and beat Alabama. Alabama still hasn't lost an SEC game. I think they've won all five of their SEC games. They had West Virginia when they were at full strength on the ropes. They had them down 10 with 9 minutes to go in the second half and couldn't hold on for that one. So, we felt really good about going into the conference play. And Bassey got injured a little bit in the Alabama game. I mean, he was fine the first week in conference play, but he didn't have his conditioning. He had been out about 12 days. So, he played just okay. And in the two games at Charlotte, we won one by a couple and lost one by a couple. Lost the second game with a 7-point lead and 2.5 minutes to go. Lost that game in overtime. And then this past week, it was a Tums tosser. The first game ended up winning it by a couple points. And then like Louisiana Tech did to Marshall in the second game in Ruston, they did it the same thing us to here. They were up 29-8. And finally, the Hilltoppers came back and had a chance to take the lead. They missed a layup off a missed shot with 13 seconds to go. The player was wide open. He just short-armed it. I think he was fearful maybe he would get his shot blocked. And we missed that shot and ended up losing that one. So they have not played as well as they did, once before the conference started. And I think it's really because conference teams know how to, we know how to defend each other. We see each other twice a year. I think sometimes those Power 5 schools come in against, good programs like WKU and feel like, well, we don't have to do any adjusting. We'll just throw our 5 out there against our 5 and our 5 will win. That doesn't happen. Now, Rick's record against Power 5 schools is awesome here at WKU. However, when he's playing teams that have seen him year after year after year, it's a little bit more difficult for the Hilltoppers to score because teams know how to play them.
How do you feel about not only seeing teams year after year, but unlike this Marshall set, because it's your travel partner, you're scheduled a little different, but the teams in conference, you play them, and then you go to your room or you go home, depending on if it's a home or road game, and then you go right back at it again tomorrow, and you got to put the same effort, if not a better effort, and you've got to adjust on the fly. How do you feel that at least Western Kentucky is adapting to that? Did that lead to some of those games maybe not going the way the Hilltoppers wanted?
Yeah, I don't think anyone knows. I do know this. I don't know what else is going on around the conference in terms of conferences playing like we are, back-to-back days. But we've had 22, I'll call them series, a Friday, Saturday. I'll call that a series. So in 2 weeks, we've had 22 matchups of Friday, Saturday, back-to-back. We've had 19 splits and only 3 sweeps in conference play. And the 3 sweeps were against, I would say, 3 of the 4 worst teams in the league right now: Southern Miss, FAU, UTSA. Everyone else has split. Now, on the women's side of things, that's completely the opposite. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's something like 13 sweeps and 4 splits or something like that. So completely different on the women's side of things. I think it shows you, though, there's some balance in Conference USA. And, no matter who was picked to win the conference, you got to bring your A game. And right now, the Hilltoppers offensively have not had their A game in the last couple of weeks. Tavian Hollingsworth, who's having an all-conference season until the last 6 games, his shooting percentage in the last 6 games has dropped from 52% to 41%. Right now, teams are packing the lane, forcing him to shoot jump shots, and double teaming Bassey sometimes when he doesn't even have the ball. So it's been a problem for us to score. If teams have been able to defend us without fouling, we've had trouble scoring in the last couple of weeks. We get to the foul line a bunch, but if you can defend the Hilltoppers without fouling, make us hit perimeter jump shots, control the tempo, don't get it up and down, that has been the effective way to at least the last 2 Saturdays beat this team.
Do you feel with the schedule being a little different, this is a Friday, Sunday, originally it was going to be tonight, but Marshall asked for an extra day, and Western Kentucky, kindly enough, it allowed that. And then, of course, we get the game on Sunday here in Huntington. You feel there's a different energy. You're playing Marshall, Western Kentucky, Marshall. That has become a series you look forward to. Is there a different energy here, or is it still just running a gauntlet and Marshall's just the next opponent?
Oh, no, I think the Marshall series certainly has. I think when WKU first moved into the Conference USA, I really don't think they considered Marshall a rival in basketball. Not saying they were better than Marshall, but that just wasn't a rivalry game. It was just another game. Football became a rivalry game because Marshall was the team to beat at that time. And they felt like if the Hilltoppers said, if we could get as good as Marshall is in football, then we get a chance to be a contender in the East Division, and they were able to do that. Basketball wasn't the same at that time, but it's changed. A lot of it had to do with, Elmore leading the Thundering Herd to the Conference USA Championship win and keeping Hilltoppers from going to the NCAA tournament a few years ago. Also the series has been really pretty close the last few years. And the other rival that people have just hung on forever is MTSU. And MTSU has fallen on hard times the last couple of years. They aren't the same team. So I think some of that, that really, oh my goodness, here are the Blue Raiders. I think some of that for right now has shifted over to Marshall.
Joining us on the program, the voice of the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers, Randy Lee, coming up tomorrow. We got an early one tomorrow, 5 o'clock tip our time, early even still in Bowling Green, and then they get the Sunday game. As far as fan situation is concerned, what's it look like at this point? I know Marshall's allowing limited fans in. What's the situation for Western Kentucky? Because usually the atmosphere is great for these games.
Yeah, I think it's to me of all the rivalries in the conference, this is the best one in terms of attendance for sure. We all know how great the crowds are at the Henderson Center, and they're the same here. So that certainly affects the atmosphere because everyone looks forward to playing in that kind of atmosphere. We're allowing, not we, the governor's allowing 1,200 people. So that's what we have to go with. And the capacity at Diddle, since the renovation, is 7,500. So, it's about, 15%, I believe, is what it is. And, it's better than some other schools. Now, I think I've heard for tomorrow night, we're not allowing any officials in from outside Warren County. So hopefully that will also help us.
Joining us on the program, he is the voice of
You haven't heard that, Paul?
I have not heard that. I did not
okay.
hear that.
All right.
I had not heard that. I had not heard that. I didn't know how to respond to that, so I was just moving on. Randy Lee joins us, the voice of the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. This is a fun one for sure. What's your impression of Marshall? I know you've looked ahead. You've been focused on, of course, the Hilltoppers, but from what you have seen of Marshall, what's your impressions?
I haven't seen Marshall play at all. I've listened to probably 3 or 4 or 5 games that Steve does. I love listening to Steve, so I would just prefer to listen to Steve than watch Marshall. I enjoy his broadcast so much. I did get a sort of a really good scouting report from Louisiana Tech, and I didn't even ask for one. They came up and told me how good Marshall was this year, and they were telling me they felt like this was the most balanced and well-rounded team that they've had in a while. So, I don't know if you feel the same way, but they felt like it was Dan's best all-around team because they could do maybe some other things a little bit better than some of the other teams he's had. And if that's the case, Marshall's going to be very difficult for anyone to deal with.
I think the only thing holding Marshall back right now is this pandemic. To be fair, just the way that we have to proceed, and if someone comes into contact with someone who had COVID, or if there's contact tracing, or if there's one positive, and sure it's the same for everyone.
Sure.
Yeah, it's just it knocks you back, and so Marshall.
Well, it depends upon who your players are that aren't playing, too.
Yeah.
We've been very fortunate. We have not had one game at WKU that has been moved or canceled because of any of WKU athletes having the virus. Now, knock on wood, hopefully that will continue. So, we haven't had to really deal with that in our program yet. Now, we have played 2 games against teams who had sort of a break because of the pandemic. In football, Charlotte was moved back a week, and then it was moved back 3 or 4 more days, and we went to Charlotte in football, and they played like crap. And I think you could probably tell they hadn't practiced in a while. Of course, I think they had gone like 5 or 6 straight weeks not playing a game. So it was fairly obvious that game was over early. And the WKU football team this year wasn't that good. So it really affected them. Now, in terms of basketball, we had played, maybe 5 games, and Gardner-Webb hadn't played any. And they come here to Diddle and almost beat WKU in their first game of the season. So, you just never know. I mean, Gardner-Webb I think they had to play 3 or 4 games they were going to play before they got here, and they were scared to death because they had no idea what they were going to do, and they shot lights out. I mean, they shot something like 60% in three-point land. And then they go to the next game, and I think they were like 2 for 18 or 20. So you just never know. You never know.
He's the voice of the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. He's Randy Lee, and he'll have the game tomorrow for the Western Kentucky side of things. Before we let you go, so what's the Western Kentucky take on Doc Holliday and a possible replacement? Who would Doc Holliday's replacement be if you were hiring?
Well, first of all, on that, no one here.
Okay. So no
one. I would say no. I would say no one in Red Towel territory.
Okay.
When I told them there may be a chance, if Marshall doesn't win, the conference this year, that I knew Coach didn't have a contract past July 31st. I said, there's a chance. No one believed me because they were the dominant team, and he was Coach of the Year. I mean, good gracious! So it was a complete shock to everyone in this part of Conference USA, maybe everyone outside of Marshall. So I think that was the feeling. In terms of the replacement, I'm only guessing, and believe me, I haven't put any time or thought into it, but to me, they would go after maybe a guy with more of a sort of modern day offense, even though when Marshall's offense was clicking, it clicked. But they're in the tail end of the season, it didn't. And I'm only speculating that maybe they would go with someone with an offensive background who would be a little more wide open. But I could be completely wrong.
That's okay.
I did see the list of like 6 candidates the other day.
Yeah, I did too. That's okay. We are all probably wrong. Yeah, we all have a guess, and we're all probably wrong.
You know, there's a West Virginian out there who was not even put on that list that did very well at WVU is Rich Rodriguez, and of course Rich has bounced around a little bit.
He's already
Rich
taken
just
though.
Took the job
yeah.
He just took an offensive coordinator's job at ULM. I could not believe it. That is the worst program in the Sun Belt.
You know what's funny though?
Now, it may not be once Coach Bowden and Rich are there, but I mean, you talk about a challenge. So I was surprised with that.
You know, it's funny. I was at a doctor's appointment today, and I get to the receptionist to check out, and she's like, "All right, what have you heard on the coaching job?" I'm like, "Yeah, I really don't know much." She said, "I don't want Rich Rodriguez."
I know. No one does.
Nobody wants Rich Rodriguez.
No, I just brought that name up to stir you up a little bit.
It's all good.
Are there any former players that I don't know if Chad would ever be interested in getting into coaching. Have there been former players who have gone on and been like position coaches and done a good job recruiting that may want to come back home?
Well, other than the list you've seen, Chad has politely said, "I'm good," because he's a high school coach right now. And he's focusing on that. And Byron Leftwich is doing so well in the NFL. I think he's going to see where that takes him. I mean, he's probably going to eventually
take a big pay cut, probably.
Yeah, he's going to be a head coach in the NFL. I think one day he's primed. Yeah. And if he's not, it's a shame. But I like and he's hanging out with Tom Brady right now. So what more could you ask for?
Well, that's true. Yeah, he's got a pretty big game this weekend, so he's probably not thinking about coming back to bail out the alma mater right now.
No, he's got a different game to worry about, and we've got a fun game coming up tomorrow. Randy Lee's joining us, the voice of the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. I'm excited. Good to talk to you. I will probably not see you on Sunday since I'm outside of all of that, but Bill Cornwell will be there, so you'll be in good hands.
Well, Billy C. and I are breaking bread together with mask on until the bread is broken Saturday night. So we will be careful. We've got a couple other people coming with us. One's already had it, so it should be safe to eat with them, and we'll have a good time Saturday night at a limited good time, and then was Saturday night? Yeah, Saturday night, and then we'll be there early on Sunday. Looking forward to it.
Be a fun one, Randy. Thanks for talking to me. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you again real soon.
You're welcome. Thanks, Paul.
That's Randy Lee, voice of the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. Ari Aganus coming up on the other side of the break here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930. Presented by Huntington Federal Savings Bank. Guests with Paul Swann appear via the Miller Lite phone lines.
We've got a busy phone line this hour. We just had the voice of the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers, Randy Lee, and now we welcome to the program the head coach of the Marshall volleyball team, the future champions of Conference USA in the world, Ari Aganus. No pressure there.
Yeah, I think you just set us up for good success. I don't think it's pressure. I think it's a good thing.
No pressure there. It's funny. We were talking about you yesterday. I don't want to use – because I have like 10 minutes here because Ari said, look, you're on the clock, 10 minutes, buddy, and that's all you get. I was talking about you yesterday.
That's the only reason. We get to start. We just got everything back, and we had to wait for COVID results, so we're just anxious. So we've got the girls where they're all heading to the gym now, and that is why. I promise it would not be a very important reason, and it is a very important reason. So
okay.
That's the only reason.
Okay, because I was talking to John Mercer and for like 40 minutes yesterday, and we were talking about you, just the fact that you're so hard to get these days, and now we can get you because you've got so much going on. You're excited. Team was picked second East Division, and Sierra DeBell is honored once again with something else, preseason all-conference team for the second year in a row. Where do you want to start? Because there's a lot of good things happening here.
There's a lot of great things happening. I think that it's just, you go from being ranked the year before and the team did everything they needed to do to earn a fourth spot. And I just think that it's awesome to be recognized by all the coaches. And it's such a successful volleyball conference that when you get coaches to vote and kind of put you in that lineup, it's awesome. And I, as a unit, we always want to be at the top. We don't need to be the underdog all the time. So I think that it was great last year. We had a lot to prove, and this year we have a lot more to prove. And it's not pressure; it's a privilege to be ranked that high. So we take it, and it's going to be great motivation, and we're going to do the same whether we're ranked last or second. But to come in right after Western is just awesome, and we're just ready. Like, we are so ready to play again. We're so ready to just give it everything we've got, and I know that the girls are just anxious to get out there again. So I think we've got nothing to say but good things. And as far as Sierra, I mean, if you ever watch her play, if anybody's ever seen her, she's fun to watch. She's so casual when she plays. There's no stress. There's no kind of anxiety. She's a phenomenally talented human being. And after her tryouts for the U.S. national team, something clicked with her, and her willingness to learn has gone up exponentially. So I'm just so excited. It's a huge honor for her, but she earned it. She's a phenomenal kid. She's a phenomenal athlete, stellar volleyball player, and I truly just don't even think we've touched the surface of how good she is.
How challenging has it been to get to this point? We've talked off season for a while when you were doing things like trying to keep morale. Now you have actually something tangible. And if you follow Marshall Volleyball on social media, you know that almost of all the teams, yours is the most amped, it feels like, and ready to go. Now you're ready to go.
We are ready. I got to give it up to the girls that they have bought in from day one. And I think that that's just kind of how our program is that it's their program. So you either buy in or you don't. And that means being really safe and being cautious and not going out and not doing things with friends or new people and keeping our bubble really small and working out in weird ways at home with different things. And so we gave them some space over Christmas because I think that, you go with these college kids, athlete or not, what everybody went through this fall is just tough. It's just really tough to not be able to do anything and not be able to hang out with people or not be able to go home because you have older grandparents or something. So they're ready, but they've worked hard and we have stuck together as a team and we've stuck together as a unit. And I think that it's just going to be fun. We're going to have challenges. There's going to be huge bumps that come up the same way today. We've just been waiting all day and you kind of get it. And then you sprint to go do something. So whenever we have the opportunity to be in the gym, whether that's competing or practicing, we're just going to treat it like it's our last every time.
Conference is a little different this year. You have a limited schedule, then you're going to get really into conference. So how challenging is that going to be? Every match matters, but even more so now.
I think it's going to be really interesting. Playing back-to-back, volleyball in club and is very used to that, but we're very removed from it. So I think that's going to be a challenge. But playing the same opponent twice in a row, I think could be fun. I think that, or interesting, fun's maybe not the right word, but I think that, you only have to prep for one team. So you have such a singular focus going into the weekend instead of one prep for a Friday and then one for a Sunday. The limited schedule, I think we've just got all that we're kind of trying to focus on here in the beginning and throughout the year, because we do have limited numbers, is to prevent or rehab injuries as much as possible so that they don't get worn down, because you play back to back and that's really tough on the body for any sport. But especially if you're jumping and bounding and those kinds of things. So I think that's probably going to be a challenge. And I think everybody in the country is going to have to navigate that. But it'll be interesting, this East and West division. It's kind of, you kind of wish you could play everybody, but the top four from each side go to the conference tournament. And I think you can then hopefully see the best of the best when you get there. And so that's just what we're striving to do, is to make it into the top four and get to the conference tournament and then show everybody what we've got there.
Is your coaching going to change? Does it have to adjust? Or are you going to maybe go, okay, maybe I shouldn't start someone today. I'm going to have to start on the next match, hold someone back. How are you using your depth? All of those questions. Is it going to be different for you, or are you just going to work through it and coach as you see the game needs?
I think we just work through it. I think there are great times for strategy, and I don't think this is the year for it, at least for us personally. I think what we've kind of realized through COVID more than anything is just how you don't know what's going to happen that night, and you certainly don't know what's going to happen that next day. If you hold a kid back, then they catch a symptom, then they're out, then it's like, was it worth holding them out? And you just, to me, whatever you have that morning is just what you have to go for and put your best foot forward, because anything could change so quickly. So whatever we've got, we're going to go for it. But the team has bought in. We've talked about it since all of this happened, that some may play out of position, some may have a different role on the team than they're used to, and they're all good with it and stay with it, because it just means that they get to be part of this process.
Joining us on the program, she is the head coach of the Marshall volleyball team, Ari Aganus, picked second in the East Division. Western Kentucky, number one there. West Division features Rice as the top team, and, of course, Sierra DeBell making the preseason team. This isn't the Sierra, easy for me to say. This isn't the Sierra DeBell show, though. Who are you looking forward to seeing get out there?
I'm really looking forward to Destiny getting back out there. Sydney, our setter, has put in some serious work over the past year, and I think that this will be a season for her to shine. And we have switched roles for Sarah Shank, and I think that she is going to excel so much better. We've got a freshman, Anna Calcagno, that we've just, what we saw this fall and what we're kind of getting a hint of already, she's going to be really fun, and she's going to be a big impact on this program. Macy McElhaney, that transferred from WVU, hasn't had a chance for anybody to see what she can do, but that kid is, she's real special. On and off the court, she's really, really special, and she is going to take us to different limit and heights and will exceed or push our limits. So it's going to be fun. It is going to be fun. I think the beautiful thing about being ranked second and only having one kid on the team just means that we've got the whole package. We've got, Sierra's a stellar stud, and that's awesome, and she deserves every accolade coming to her. But when you get picked second and you've only got one person on there, it means everybody else just does their job, and they do it really, really well. So I think there will be some new studs and standouts, and I think that's going to be exciting. But we just play really humble and really well together, which is also fun.
Ari Aganus, my guest, she is ready to go. I mean, seriously, literally ready to go, because after you hang up with me, you're on the court. You're ready to go.
We're ready. Yeah, we really just got all of the results, and so we're good. We can practice. We're going to get in there. We're going to have a team meeting, and we've just been sitting in the office waiting and just got the clear, and so it's go time.
Before I let you go, I have 8 seconds. How's Jake's wardrobe? Are you working on that this year?
Stay tuned, man.
Okay.
Stay tuned. We've got to outdo ourselves every year, right? So we'll try to amp it up a little bit, and maybe this is the year we get really creative, because we've got to have masks on, so things get kind of fun.
All right, I'm looking forward to this. Tentatively, we're looking forward to this, because sometimes I don't know, Coach. I follow you on social, and I follow Jake on social as well, and I think you're two of the best on social. But sometimes I just shake my head at Jake. I mean,
I know. I do that all the time. But you know what? He keeps the world going round here at Marshall Volleyball. So he just got really excited. He's right here. So he got very excited that we're getting a shout-out. We probably need to tone it down to keep his ego down a bit.
Yes, let's do that for sure, because he has no confidence problem whatsoever based on that wardrobe I see of his. None.
You are correct, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate you carving out 10 or 12 minutes for me, and looking forward to it. We'll get you back on soon, because we've got Xavier coming up here in a short bit, and looking forward to this season.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Ari Aganus, head coach of the Marshall volleyball team. She's probably slamming the phone down right now and heading out to the court, because that's how quick they found out everything. I mean, right now, and now they're heading to the court to get ready to go. We'll wrap it up when we continue here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
This is The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.
Thanks for tuning in to today's edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Coming up tomorrow, we actually have Marshall basketball. That's right, the Herd taking on Western Kentucky. That's coming up tomorrow. We start a little early. We start at 4 o'clock. 5 o'clock is going to be tip. You can catch that action right here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Yesterday on the program, I had John Mercer on, and today, his tennis duo of Liz Stefanik and Jutta van Hanswijk ranked 30th in the ITA Division I Women's Preseason Doubles Top 60. And, of course, I usually like to have this stuff on with John because he's a lot better at pronouncing his players' names than I am. But other than that, it was funny. See, you know what? I think that's a little karma. You come on the show, good things happen to you. For example, Coach Mercer's on the show yesterday, and today his tennis duo ranked 30th in the Division I Women's Preseason rankings. I mean, I'm not saying that this show had everything to do with it, but I mean, it's awful coincidental that he's on, good things happen to him. I'm just going to keep forwarding that agenda until someone otherwise can prove differently. But no, congratulations to him. John's a good friend of the program. We appreciate him being on, and looking for some good things happening. Now that we actually are getting more of these sports happening and more of these student athletes can get on their particular field of play, volleyball's all set, ready to go. I mean, they probably have been like a horse ready to go in the gate, just ready to go and waiting, and then just shoot out of the gate like a thoroughbred. Shooting out of the gate is probably how they feel. Like they have just been ready to, hey, we want to race. Let's go. Let's get this going here. And off they go. So, finally we get softball going too. That'll be good. We get softball and baseball and everything else going. That will be good to see all of that happen. But I kind of like the volleyball schedule. I like it. I like this East-West stuff a little bit better. Be honest with you, I really think that might be something to look at on a more constant basis because it helps with your travel. To be honest, it helps with your travel. And Conference USA is a different conference. It's not as if Conference USA has geographical common sense about it. Rice, North Texas, UTSA, UTEP, UAB, Louisiana Tech, and Southern Miss. Makes sense. Group those 7 together. Makes sense. Go back and forth. The travel's probably a little easier, a little bit better. And it sure beats Marshall traveling to UTSA or Marshall traveling to North Texas. Louisiana Tech, probably not so bad. Southern Miss, probably not so bad. But still, you're going to keep the travel to Bowling Green, Kentucky, Huntington, West Virginia, FAU, FIU. So basically the Florida run. Charlotte, Murfreesboro, and you're playing in Old Dominion. It's a backyard. That's it. That's not terrible, really. That's not bad travel for what might be deemed as your non-revenue sports. So I like that. I'd like to see more of that. And, maybe eventually you can do some crossover, but I really think that that's going to be better for the schedule. And you're not going to see that strictly in all athletics across the board, but I think that makes more sense, don't you? Because it feels like 2 conferences anyway. You feel like you're in 2 different leagues. You're playing in the East Division, and you understand what those teams are. And for the most part, if you're a Herd fan, I don't know what your level of excitement is here for these teams on a regular basis. But as far as the Olympic sports are concerned, keep the geography as best you can. Now, I'm not saying deny opportunity, but my core schedule I would basically, I have 6 teams in the East Division I have to face. Let's do this. And maybe you keep this format, this scheduling format, a couple of years, see how it goes, because it's going to take some time for athletic departments to kind of recover and to rebuild and to recuperate. Probably not so much with the power schools, just because the television revenue is going to be a lot better. But the money from the ticket sales, I'm sure that's put a dent in the pocketbook for programs like Marshall, Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee. Your mileage may vary as far as how much ticket revenue you're really getting and how much that means to the program. For Marshall, I'm sure the ticket revenue means a lot. For a program that maybe doesn't attract as many fans, like an FIU maybe Middle Tennessee, things would be better if they were attracting more fans. Not to say that, I just think it probably varies, but still, you're looking at a situation where you're probably going to have to evaluate what you're spending here for a few years, just because we found out that athletic departments can't afford to bank money because you're spending it out. It's already spoken for. Yeah, what if, other than the essentials to run your program, and that means recruiting budget as well, the essentials to run your program and recruiting, contracts, that stuff, what if you banked a little cash for a couple of seasons? No, we can hold off on that new addition to the athletic complex. Think about it. We can hold off on that new addition to the athletic complex for a year or so. We don't have to have a whirlpool every locker room in the football complex. Okay, maybe I'm talking Alabama here, but still. What if you banked some of that and held it back a little bit to ease your budgets? I get it. I don't think that's a bad idea. Just to find ways to save some revenue, have it so when you have a situation like this, it's not as dire. But at the same time, you're trying to, at some athletic departments, you are spending what you make because that's what it takes to keep the athletic department afloat. What you have coming in is basically going right back out, because if you're not, you're less of an athletic department in certain regards. And already we've seen a lot of downsizing, combining of jobs, all of that. So I like these scheduling initiatives, just to get back to that point. And that's going to do it for this edition. I want to thank my guest, the voice of the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers, Randy Lee, also Ari Aganus, the head coach of the Marshall volleyball team. I'm Paul Swann. This has been The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
WRBC Huntington, W227BS Huntington, your flagship home of the Marshall Thundering Herd and The Drive with Paul Swann, ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930.